Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another virtual edition of Mic'd Up Sports, a show that goes in depth with the people who build our sports community. And my next guest hasn't been in the Twin Cities, at least for a minute, but she made quite the mark at Hopkins before moving to Michigan State, 2016 Miss Basketball Minnesota, and now a civilian again after finishing up her college career with the Michigan State Spartans. Nia Hollie, and one of my dear friends. And Nia, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to this conversation just to see how much you and I have grown since the last time I did a feature on you all those years ago.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me, first of all. This is amazing to, go through this process and make it through the process. And now I am a regular civilian now, but I haven't been since I was like probably 8. So that's pretty cool. Definitely new, especially in this pandemic that's going on. But thank you. Thank you for having me.
So normally I start with when players got their first stage. Usually I start at the beginning when I do these oral history interviews, but I actually want to start at the end because right before your last regular season game, Michigan State, their in-house video team put together a feature and aired it about your journey, your backstory, how you overcame things like losing friends to gun violence and also having to work your way through some domestic disturbances. And so I'm wondering, it was a great piece. I enjoyed watching it. How nervous were you to share that story, and what led you to decide that you were ready to open up that part about yourself?
So basically, when the story came out, and like when we were putting the story together, it was kind of like my mom had actually make like to and from trips, like, from Minnesota, that 10-hour drive, often just to do a little bit of filming and to, like also kind of be there for me as like an emotional support, because that was opening up a wound that I probably never acknowledged. And it was a piece of my, my history that got me to where I am today. It got me through college as well. It's something that a lot of kids go through. A lot of my friends have went through as well. There are plenty of people that have the same story as me, but they don't get a lot of notoriety to it. And I think, you got to give it to society and, pop culture, just being popular now and, raising awareness around mental health and, really diving into like, unpacking your childhood, basically, reasons that you are the way that you are and, like how you can grow to be a better person as well. So, I thank Spartan Vision for allowing me to have that special and, put that out. And, I thank Michigan State for allowing me to continue my story here and share my story. That's, not a lot of schools do that. Not a lot of people do that, but not a lot of people care like that either. And so I got to give it up to my teammates and my coaches and, people that care about me, cared to hear my story.
And as you alluded to, that's a lot to unpack. It's certainly not easy to share a dark part about yourself. And I know I wasn't aware of it when I first met you and got to know you as a high school player. What convinced you to share the story, and what feedback have you received since you revealed that part about yourself?
Only positive feedback. Once again, I was kind of scared to tell my story because of how candid, I wanted to be. Oftentimes we tell these stories too, and you can't be as candid. It's almost like you still have to shy away from talking about certain things, but like, no, I've learned, in order for people to understand and get the full view and, for you not to be disappointed in them not understanding, you got to tell them, you got to say something. And I've, there's not a lot that I've spoken about, but, through my Instagram, through maybe what you've heard, or even if you look at me from afar, like, you're like, oh, like you have some questions you may want to ask. And like, it's been interesting, being able to answer the questions and be open to answering questions. But, I found that maybe the reasons that I am the way I am is because a lot of my questions weren't answered as a kid. And so I want to be able to change that for people, change that for society, and be one of the first to do it. There's plenty of people that are doing it, obviously, but, especially in Minnesota, more kids should be able to make it out and know that they can make it through, know that there are things that you're going through and things that you're going to face, but those things, it's ironic how they'll come full circle and how you'll need that to get through things. And so, yeah.
Well, and something I've discovered about you over the years is compassion, where, yes, as a high school player, you were getting buckets and you were one of the stars of your senior class, the 2016 group. You go to Michigan State and you don't put up the same kind of numbers, but at the same time, you seem to understand there was a world out there. And, even if you weren't an A-lister at Michigan State or the Big Ten, how do you think your 4 years as a student athlete for Michigan State helped you grow as far as the awareness, the IQ, and just the overall situation?
Man, it's funny because I've been waiting for that question for since I started college and even after. And it's funny because I don't necessarily know how to answer it. But the best way that I can answer it is that no, it wasn't how I wanted it to go. No, it wasn't how I even pictured or dreamed or envisioned it to go at all. But do I regret coming here? Absolutely not. Were there times that I questioned transferring? Absolutely. Has there been a time where I was in my coach's office saying hey, it might be time for me to go? Absolutely. But it was always, there was a further conversation in there where it was there's something that's keeping me here. There is something that is keeping me here. And this is way before my girlfriend was here too. So, you can't use that as an excuse that, she's the reason I stayed. It's really, I think the community here really poured into me in different ways. They didn't pour into me in an instant gratification way though. What I was used to was instant gratification. I got that in high school. I think I lived a very good life in high school in terms of my athletic career and, things that I got. And there was still plenty of lessons that I learned in high school that, no one ever knows about, that, helped me get through college and have to humble myself a little bit maybe, or, be honest with myself too, in college as well that, I went through in high school, but still it's a total different, situation that you're in. You're not the same person that you were in high school, but at the same time, so you begin to learn different things that you can take from that. So there's times where, I wasn't getting the playing time that I wanted at all. And then, so I had to look, okay, well, why aren't you on the court? Why are these people on the court? What can you do that makes this game better? And so I really found my niche in being the energizer, constantly talking, constantly giving. I remember talking to one of my assistant coaches who actually works with Andrea now at Texas Tech. She was like, you got more to give, kid. And I'm like, no, I don't have any more left. I don't have any more left. And she's like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And that's all she needed to say. It was a much longer conversation, but, it's now funny that 2-3 years looking back, I have so much to give. I have so much to give this world, so much to offer this world. And it's funny about looking back at it and how many times I was found, very, very down, very low in my life, very not understanding of why the hell certain things are happening the way that they're happening. Because, you come from where I came from in high school, you leave in high school as Miss Basketball, you're like, oh shit, you're entering a world of the big leagues kind of, and it didn't pan out that way. And also it doesn't pan out that way for a lot of people, and that's okay. And so I really took my experience being at Michigan State and learned from it. There are things still every day that I'm like, wow, coach said this, and now I see where it fits my life. Whereas I'm pissed the moment that I heard it, months prior. And so it's I don't know if you can blame that on quarantine, and there's a lot of time to, just think, but it's the little things. It's the little things that really mattered for me. And it's the little things that really got me through. And it's the little things that are going to keep getting me through, because those add up to the big things and the big wonderments of life.
What you say is quite profound. I'm wondering when you reached that point in your life and your thought process, because I remember a conversation we had where for a time you were embarrassed about having people come to your games because you weren't getting a lot of playing time. You weren't scoring a lot, so you weren't being as productive as I think you wanted to be. And now it sounds like, yeah, you would have enjoyed having some more opportunities, but you took much more than a Player of the Year award would give, or a tournament or something like that. So when did you, I guess, become comfortable with the fact that, maybe I'm not the star I once was, but I'm still going to find a way to make a difference?
My senior year, straight like that. I went into my senior year. We actually did a Navy SEAL training like type thing for a couple days here as a team, and like, you know, like it was intense, and it was like we were rolling in dirt until I think we got home at like 10 o'clock, and then had to wake up at like 4 a.m. and do this crazy training in the pool, and it was like the most surreal experience. But you know, we got through it as a team together, and like there was some responsibility, some things in that that program that, you know, stood out to me as a person, and for the first time as not an athlete. And when you're an athlete for so long, and you know, you go through the highs, the lows, and sometimes, you know, for me, for a while, you know, I was riding a long, you know, high ride. Once you hit rock bottom, or you hit your first low, or whatever your low may be in your life, you know, you don't know what the hell to do with it. It's like, you know, I've never done this before. And so you start to realize, you know, like life is bigger than being an athlete. You know, it's life can hit you no matter who you are, you know, whether you're an athlete that's high profile or a athlete that is, you know, low profile. It doesn't matter. Life has no picks or favorites. And so, you know, I took what I learned in that Navy SEAL training camp and like applied it to my life, and as a day by day effort, you know, and just really like understanding that, you know, it's important to live in the moment. You know, if you're sad in the moment, be sad, but know that you have to pick it up the next day and like go back to work. You gotta pick it up. There's people that you're out here doing things for, but also being able to do it for yourself. And so, like I said, you know, just a day by day kind of thing. And honestly, after our very last game, the amount of like freedom and newfound breath of fresh air that I had. You know, I actually, the first 2-3 months of quarantine, up until maybe 3 weeks ago, I was just sitting there chilling, thinking, and not even, you know, considering myself as like the athlete I once was. But, you know, now I've really, really dove deep into the exact lessons that I learned. And they're hard as hell to really like face them even again for a second time and like, you know, acknowledge them. But senior year.
And you've been pretty open about expressing yourself throughout your athletic career, as I've learned over the years. So what was maybe the lowest point, and what helped you get through it?
You know, I'll go back to my junior year of college, actually, and you know, we just talked about that a little bit earlier with the question. You know, we played in Minnesota my junior year, and it was the first time actually I told my mom and my dad, you know, it's just you that can come to the game, and my niece and my nephew, and my little sister. That's it. I didn't want anyone else. You know, I still have friends back home, and actually ended up losing a friend, and then you know, we gained back our friendship. But you know, it was just because of that. You know, huge misunderstanding. But you know, I didn't want people to come because I wasn't who I was. You know, I wasn't playing. You know, I didn't want to be embarrassed. You know, and I felt that. You know, I came home and like, you know, it's you know, also too, it's, you know, it's no secret that my two choices was Minnesota and Michigan State too, and you know, and you know, a host of other people, but you know, two top choices. And so you come home, you come back to a place where maybe you could have been, you know, maybe things could have been different, and you don't know how to deal with that. You also don't know how to deal with not being selfish in that, right? You know, I don't consider myself a selfish person. I think that, you know, it's important to understand that it's bigger than you. And so like I really struggled with that because it is bigger than me, and absolutely. But at the same time, I was just calling to feel important. And, you know, the only way that I felt important in my life up until that point was through basketball. So like, you know, having to make that distinction that I am more of a person than I am as an athlete is, you know, something that you find later in life, something that I found, you know, like a whole year later. But, you know, I came home and I actually I went to church. I just came home for a weekend and I just went to church because I hadn't been to church in years, and I just went to get prayed for. That's just to pray for my healing, pray for my mental health, pray for, you know, another day to come that I can see this through. And so my lowest point had to be junior year, because freshman year, sophomore year, you know, I took that as learning experiences. You know, you are coming in, you know, there are kids that are older than you, and you got to prove yourself. But after that, it becomes a giant mental game. It's like, you know, it's a fight with yourself. And so my junior year was really tough for me. And I found my girlfriend actually my junior year, the start of my junior year. And, that was nice. That was like a breath of fresh air. But at the same time, there's things and wounds and things that she can't heal for me. I have to do that myself. And I thank her that she allowed me to do that still in the process of, creating this beautiful relationship that we have. But, it wasn't easy. By all means, it wasn't easy at all. But I think I learned some things that are going to fuel my entire life. They are going to keep people in my life. I learned things that I would have never learned if I didn't go here, if I didn't go through the process and trust the process. Sometimes trusting the process doesn't always mean that, oh, you're just going to get 30 minutes of playing time next game. That's not what that means. I trusted this process, and I think that I came out with the most valuable information in my mind, in my body, my spirit, and it's going to travel with me for the rest of my life. And I love that. I have to admit, what it did was like, I didn't have the best career in the world possible in college, but I think I found the best, amount of teammates. I found, love for campus, like places, like, you don't really know that you can love a place until you go somewhere and you're like, oh man, like I can come back to Michigan State and feel like, the most popular kid in the world. Cause like, this is my home. This is a place that opened its arms for me and, just continue to stay the course with me. And that's, the most thanks that I can give. I'm happy I stayed.
Yeah, well, not to throw myself in there, I don't do that often, but it's like I told you all those years ago, and all the players I cover, whether they're pro prospects like Paige Bueckers or Taylor Hill was, or others that maybe go elsewhere. I mean, I don't base my friendships on playing time, and it sounds like you picked up on that as well, just with everything you've been able to accomplish and all the opportunities. Like you said, you met your girlfriend your junior year, and sounds like that helped you get back on track. So I'm glad you stayed, even though I think it would have been cool if you got to play under Lindsay Whalen for a couple of years. I'm a Minnesota graduate, so I might be a little biased.
Yeah. No, it's quite interesting going to another school that isn't your hometown or your home state, because like I was still very invested in probably like things that Minnesota was doing. And, very, very happy and relieved. They replaced, a great head coach in Coach Stallings as Coach Whalen. It's awesome. It's really one thing I've really learned is about giving back. Giving back, it started as something as small as giving back in practice. We were taught to communicate. You don't want to get hit on a screen. It's traumatizing when you see little Taryn get hit on a screen, right? So it's about communicating. And so like, I really found that to be the most important thing on our team. You hear it. That's all you hear on the court. You could always hear me, especially in high school. You could always hear my voice. And so, just using that voice. I said in an interview actually earlier this year, we do a radio show, throughout our games. And Coach Merchant, do a radio show every Tuesday, I believe, or Wednesday or something, before practice. And so my last interview, I said something about, what are other ways you can touch the history books? And, you can touch history books more than just, being an all-time leading scorer or all-time leading in assists, and that was my goal. That was my goal for my senior year. I wanted my teammates to look back at me like, damn, we missed Nia in practice, So it's kind of funny. The very first semester of my senior year, I had class during practice. So like I'd have to come to practice an hour and a half after. And, we practiced for a couple hours, 3 hours maybe sometimes. And like it's once again, it's the little things, like coming into practice or coming back and, we're doing weights or whatever. And, my team's like, oh man, like finally you're here. Like I missed you so much. Like we need somebody to talk, and it got a little stressful to hear that every time. But it's like, that's kind of cool, like I'm being relied on for something. And like I have a job, I have a responsibility, you come to college and your responsibility is just to be the best, like, rep for Michigan State women's basketball. But it's much bigger than that. You get kids coming up to you every day, so you can't go out and do certain things like you would as a normal college kid. But, also on the court, you do have jobs and responsibilities, even as role players. Role players are even bigger than the actual, big name players, because it's like, if that big name player, like for instance, I'll go back to the Hopkins game. couple of years ago when playing, a few years ago when playing Minnetonka. I looked at Paige. I'm like, hey man, my game's not on. You're not a freshman no more. I need you to come alive. You know, it's one of those. But having that trust in your teammates. You know, and I believe like we had that team for sure junior year. You know, Jenna was able to look at somebody like, I need you to do this, that, and the third, and like you're like, all right, no problem. You know, and so once again, you know, go back to the teammates and what you give to your teammates is what you give back. So what you give out to this world is going to be what you get back. And so I believe that. I believe that full circle, wholeheartedly. Yeah. I might have went on a little tangent too there, huh?
That's okay. You're allowed to go on tangents on this program because this is an oral history session. So we don't have commercial breaks to worry about.
Nice.
So even though you only scored a total of 431 points in your Michigan State career, you can say for sure that 2 of them helped Taryn McCutcheon get the school assists record. I don't know if that was your favorite moment as a college player, but to have a hand in a teammate, in one of your ride or die buddies, to have a hand in making history, what does that mean for you?
You know, we didn't know at all until after the game. You know, we're going up to do the interview after the game, and it's funny if I really can I sit and re do that game for a second, because it was quite interesting. That day was so surreal for me, and being at Michigan State is probably the best day of my entire life, was senior day. And actually, I haven't posted about it. I haven't said anything about it because I'm still kind of living in that moment. So all of my family came up. They took 2 vans and a couple cars, and my entire family from Minnesota took that long 10-hour drive, and they came up. And so they were, you know, in my apartment, my little tiny apartment with Coco, and, you know, we're just all in there just having this massive family gathering. It is just the most beautiful thing. I'm like nervous out the wazoo because I'm like, my family's here. You know, what if I don't play? You know, what if I don't score? You know, I have to think about these things now. You know, like, what if they came all this way and, like, you know, things don't pan out the way I want them to? But it's like, okay, Nia, Coach Kaz used to always tell me, control what you can control. Control what you can control. And I'm like, okay. So we're in the game, and, you know, the game's about to start, and, like, I sweat normally and naturally, but I was sweating buckets, man. And one of my little freshman teammates, Tyre, she looks at me, she goes, you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And so we go in at halftime. You know, the game's like a little iffy, back and forth. We're playing Penn State, and we go in at halftime. I hadn't scored yet. And I looked at Tyre. I'm like, Ty, I can't do this. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I need to score. I cannot not score. And it's my senior night. Like, that can't be a thing, you know? Like, I don't care if it's just 2 points. Like, I need to get a bucket, just one, just because it's senior night. Like, any other night, I never cared, obviously. You know, 431 points, I just didn't care. You know, it was about, you know, doing little things on the court. And so she's like, okay, well, let's go get you one. Let's go get you a bucket. And all my team looked at me, they're like, we got you. We got you. And that's the only thing that I needed to hear, you know? And so, like, after that, you know, we win the game, and, oh, man, like, it was a whole new second half. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. It's the most I've ever seen even Taryn, like, you know, smile and jump, and like pure love and excitement. And so, you know, I looked at T, and we're in this huddle, and I looked at her, I said, all right, your next assist is coming up. Like, we didn't know when it was coming up, but we knew it was going to be in that game. And, you know, it happened, and she's like, I want to get you. She looked at me, she goes, I need you to do me a favor. And I'm like, what? And mind you, this is in the middle of the game in a huddle. I said, what? And she's like, I want you to shoot the ball every time I give it to you. Because she knows that I won't shoot. She knows I won't shoot the ball. She knows, you know, all the ins and outs, the insecurities of, you know, just like taking a shot, you know, and this is coming from me, you know me pretty well. You've seen me in high school, and I'm not afraid to shoot anything, right? But, you know, she's like, I want you to shoot the ball every time you touch it. Every time I give you the ball, when I pass it to you, you better shoot that shit. You think that, you know, you hear this, and this is coming from little bitty Taryn, right? And I'm like, oh, man, you know, I'm like, okay, I listen to your shit. I've listened to you for 4 years. You're one of the most trusted PGs I've ever had in my entire life. Okay, I'll do what you say. It's fine. And so, you know, after that, I was playing honestly out of my mind. I played exactly how I felt in high school, just free, and my teammates loved me and trusted me and believed in me, and like, we had so much fun. And then that happened, and, you know, it was just Such a surreal moment, and it's crazy because after, when we were interviewed about it, they're like, hey, Nia, you know that you were the assist breaking, shot, whatever. And me and her looked at each other like, oh my gosh, did we just like manifest that shit? I think we did. And so like that ended up happening, and I'm so proud that, I was a part of that moment, but I'm proud that she allowed me to be a part of that moment. She created that shit for me, and like, I can't thank her enough for that, that probably fueled, my passion even more for life and giving back and all these things. And, it's about, once again, how you treat your teammates, how you are for them, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think I have an idea. Moral of the story, Tara McCutcheon is the shit.
She is the shit. Yeah. She shoots more than three, man. She is. Little T has a heart of gold, and she can cook, man. I mean, really cook. But she just has a heart of gold. She has a completely different outlook on life that you would never think ever. I mean, when you meet Taryn, it's probably like, wow, huh. Like, she's not who you would think she is. And that is the best thing about her. She is this kid that she's quiet. She's a very like tiny voice. She doesn't really talk much, but like she has a lot to say. Very, very smart. Can draw. She can cook. She's, but overall, she's a good person. She's a good friend, very good friend. And she's going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life. When I first came to college, we ended up talking for about 4 or 5 hours in the caf of our new dorm room, and that's how we met. And we talked all night, and I actually literally learned her entire life in one night of my first night of freshman year. And she's been one of my best friends ever since. And I can't thank Taryn enough. So,
what's your favorite recipe that Tara McCutcheon has cooked up?
Ooh, that's a good one. She makes some damn good chicken parm, and you cannot go wrong with her desserts. I can't pick a favorite with desserts. When I say you can't go wrong with her desserts, you cannot go wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if she opens up her little own shop, and she's taking over Gigi's Cupcakes or something pretty soon, because that girl can cook.
So I take it her cooking presented a problem for you and your girlfriend, Ella Douglas, if I'm saying that right, as far as nutrition.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because me and my girlfriend are just learning how to really, really cook, especially being in quarantine. You got to budget a little bit better. And so we're really learning different health magnet things to cook, but also like that has been a huge part of my life in terms of basketball and athletics. And fitness is my fitness health, and like what I eat and what I put in my body. And so, dating a gymnast, obviously, that's very important to them, of what they put in their bodies and whatnot. And like, a basketball player, they don't really care. They really just, it is what it is. And so actually that's a huge lifestyle change that I ended up making in my life in the past 2 years, is eating more healthy and less junk, and, finding my sugars in fruits as opposed to like everything else that's bad for you. Finding that, you can fill yourself up completely on protein and, not expand your fat molecules or something. It's like you have to learn how to be healthy. It's not all about, I'm just going to go on this green juice diet. You don't have to do that. You don't got to starve yourself, but you do have to educate yourself on what is healthy, what is not. You can have a bunch of cheat days, but you got to know how to space out your cheat days. Not every day can be a cheat day. And it's just, about becoming aware, what you want, and have I felt a lot better since I've put better things in my body? Hell yes. So I'm a full advocate for that, and cooking your own food.
Now, you touched on this when we started this Zoom conference. How much did you know about gymnastics before meeting Ella, and how much have you learned since then? Because I always thought it was amusing that, here's this 5'11" basketball prodigy, you're dating a gymnast.
And she's the prodigy, huh? I love it.
Hey, she's just as damn good as you were, all right? Don't sell yourself short. Even if you only got 431 points, you got a D1 scholarship. Not everyone can say that. Yeah, she got 9-9 routines about 99% of the time, but still.
She's unlimited in the world of possibilities. And like, she's, if you really watched Gabby do gymnastics, you are just in total awe. And it's like, it's funny because they were like, there was one time I was watching her on TV. Instead, she was at Michigan, and somebody was like, "Wow, she has so much Canadian flair," and I'm like, "Whoa, she does." This is my girlfriend. I see her every day, and I'm like, the way that how serious she takes her sport, how passionate she is about her sport, about all of the ins and outs about, and then also too just the extramarital things that she does. She's the leader of her, the captain of her team. Sorry, she's the president of SAC, our student athlete community. I didn't know absolutely anything about gymnastics. I mean, I remember asking her, "Well, do you guys feel that when you fall?" Because the very first gymnastics meet I went to, a girl like flipped and fell off the bar and just got up, went back on the bar, and I'm like, that hurt, And she's like, no, we know we're in the air where we are, you just brace for it. And I'm like, okay. And so like slowly but surely I started to learn certain things and learn, how to get a 10 and why it's so hard to get a 10, even though I'm still going to advocate hard for it, but it's been fun learning a whole different sport, you would think, first of all, gymnastics, you have to start it when you're very, very young. That's something I didn't know either. The flexibility thing comes from when you're young. It's funny, stretching with her. Two totally different body types, two totally different people. I can't stretch and really touch my toes, but she can, so that's been fun being able to stretch properly. But gymnastics is probably the most complicated and complex sports, does not get the credit that it deserves, because that, excuse my language, that shit is hard. I mean, have you seen the size of a beam? It's hard. So I got to give credit to that entire community. I mean, she has teammates that, I absolutely adore, and they adore me, and they're awesome. This gymnastics team here is amazing. Her coaches have welcomed me with open arms. I've been in like practices and just watched them practice, and like her coaches will sit there and they'll talk to me, and, it's quite different how they run their things as opposed to how we run ours. But it's still the same structure. Obviously it's a college sport, so got to have some structure to it. But, they're amazing. They're truly amazing.
I like how you say "excuse my language" after we've already dropped a few S-bombs.
Right?
half an hour into this interview.
Yeah.
Now, for you, how cool or how relieving or how refreshing was it to go into a sport clueless, I guess, as you said you were? You've grown up in basketball, and I know you follow the other big sports. I know you were celebrating when Tyler Johnson, who graduated 2016, got drafted. I'm sure you and I are going to be closet Buccaneers fans now.
Oh, yeah.
But what is it like to be introduced to a sport you have no prior knowledge of, so you don't have to worry about any of the drama or the narratives or the gossip that you probably had to deal with? I remember folks giving you flack when you chose Michigan State over Minnesota. I mean, I don't care, but others took offense to that. But here you are, you get to be a fan. You don't have to worry about X's, O's, and how they slashed the rim. You just get to be one of us.
Yeah. I've always said that to her. It is so nice being able to come to a meet and just be a spectator. I like, you don't really understand how much fun you get from it. I used to look at my dad like, shut up, when I'm playing. And it's like, he says a lot because it's fun being a spectator out there. You have the freedom to just kind of sit there and watch and really learn, and also, take in, how they do their things, how they get things done. It's very interesting. We watch a gymnastics competition. They go one at a time and it's very quick. Like all the motions that they do is like very quick, through the events. And you really it's hard to, first of all, pinpoint and focus on one person, but like you have no choice but to watch every girl compete in that gym. So you see their talent, you see them, you see their frustrations, you see, all of the things that they're thinking on their mind. You see even one of the things that was huge in basketball is, your conditioning level, or like looking at coach, like, nobody sees if I'm breathing hard that much, in like gymnastics. Oh, you can see that stuff. And so it's important. Like everything that's important in every other sport is heightened in gymnastics of importance. And so being a spectator, a part of you feels like being an early parent, kind of. In the weirdest of ways, you feel like being an early parent, because it's like, gymnastics is also a dangerous sport. So, you see your friends and, your significant other flip through the air, and it's like, can you land it? And like, mind you, she's a professional at this stuff, but it's like, you still question it. You're like, you're kind of scared. So gymnastics is different being a spectator. It's a different kind of like, you're a fan, but like you're anxious, but you're not anxious because, you know, you don't know, you want to see who wins or loses. You're anxious because like, can you land this jump? Can you really flip that high in the air and land it? And like, that's what I'm saying. It's spectacular what they do. It's so complex. And I love watching it. I love watching something completely different than basketball, completely remove myself from, you know, an entire different mindset of, you know, an athletic mindset in gymnastics. I would never do it though, but, you know, totally support it.
Well, as Ella said, it's not a friendly sport for taller folks like ourselves. So you and I,
Yeah. And
it wouldn't end well.
Beam, huh? Still tries to get me to stand up on the beam. I'm like, no, my ankles are they're not stable enough for that.
And it's like, I forget how wide it is. It's not very wide. And even at the high school level, we're watching Simone Biles, who I adored. I can't wait whenever the next Olympics comes. That is, you talk about precision. We talk about it with field goal percentages and floor awareness in basketball and gymnastics. You're up a couple of feet at least. I don't know how high the beam is. Ella would be able to tell us. And you have this much room to work with.
Yeah. And she's a beam specialist. You know, I call them beam workers. She's a beam specialist. That's what she does. And she's fantastic at it. I mean, absolutely amazing at it. It's funny because, so I didn't know anything the first year, right? So the second year that we're in, it's kind of hilarious because the meet that ended up getting canceled because of COVID, and it was the very last one, obviously. I had given her a whole like little playbook to kind of go into the meet with, like, make sure that your turns are crisp, your feet are flexed, make sure that, you know, on your split jumps that you get both legs at a certain degree angle or whatever. And I'm like, you know, these are the things that you're getting docked off. You know, I ended up learning pretty quickly, and like the things that were taking away from her point value in total, I'm like, hey, this is what you got to fix, you know? So we ended up coaching each other a little bit, which was, you know, nice and like kind of cool, kind of funny too. You know, she still doesn't know quite as much about basketball at all. She just enjoys watching us. So, yeah.
I can see why you two get along because, you know, much like, you know, she gets to be a fan at your games, at least when you were dating, you got to be a fan at her meets. And I don't know where you see yourself in your career, but I just think it'd be hilarious if you and I were to call a gymnastics meet as two fishes out of water.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fun. That would be really fun.
Yeah, drop us in a basketball game. We could talk all day. Gymnastics, I think it would be just as hilarious to see how we – okay, what just happened there? You're picking up on some stuff. Okay, so what does she enjoy most about basketball? Even if she doesn't know as much as we do, what has she enjoyed about having a significant other be a standout basketball athlete?
We've had conversations about, like, you know, she is the superstar, like, in our relationship currently. Like, I mean, you know, she's pretty famous on this campus. I mean, and she's known for even more than just her gymnastics, though. You know, like I said earlier, she's she's the president of SAC. She is the captain of her team. She's the captain of a lot of different things, a lot of different, you know, even she started the mental health initiative here, like, you know, the very first one. So, you know, she's very popular, you know, around campus. And so, really what it provides for us is, like, you know, when she's watching a basketball game, she's just watching like the entire game. She loves sports as a whole. Her father and her mother are very into sports, and they're very athletic themselves. And so she just enjoys being able to, once again, as you know, similar to me, just being a spectator and like learning something completely different. She can't play a lick of basketball to save her life. We just practiced our shots a couple weeks ago. She's not good at it, but it's all right. She's getting better. She's learning and loving it. But it's interesting with her being the superstar. And, like, you know, I'm just kind of like, you know, fairly like low level, but at the same time, like, you know, Michigan State women's basketball is very important in itself. So, like, you know, it's like, so it's equal on that when we're walking through campus. But when she's watching my games where I'm worried about playing, and like if she, you know, is embarrassed to see if I do or don't play, you know, she's just like, oh no, I just think you look good in your jersey, you know? And I just think that's so nice. It's so awesome. And, you know, it was nice to be able, she was the first one to probably break my embarrassed exterior shell. because she didn't care about that. And also, she didn't know anything about basketball really. So like, I don't know if that played into it or anything, but, just the simple fact that, I started to once again learn the little things. It's not even about playing. It's, about the fact that I have somebody to come to after the game. My family's 10 hours away and I didn't have that the first two years. And that, took a heavy toll on me. So just the fact that I have someone else to come out to at the end of a game, whether I played or whether I didn't play, whether we won or lost, was, the most important thing. And so, same for her sport. Her family comes up every weekend that she competes. And they're amazing, amazing people. Oh my gosh, they, Canadians, if you haven't met one yet, you got to meet one soon, Mike. But, just even having her family, extended wise, her family would come down for my games as well. And like I said, it's the little things. So it was more about after the fact and being able to say I have a family or have people to come out to after the game, I think became the most important part of that entire basketball game, quite honestly.
That would be now that you guys are done, that'd be kind of fun to see like how Ella would handle basketball, how you would handle gymnastics. I could see that a funny video series just based on the crossover appeal.
Literally. Our new thing that we're planning on doing is taking up tennis. So I'll update you on that. Let's see if my hand-eye coordination can get right with the program.
Well, tennis is a double sport, so the two of you could play together. I could see that. Earlier in our conversation, and I wanted to get your take on this because you spoke of the transition from going to an A-lister in Hopkins where you were local celebrities. You had the history. You played alongside Nia Hollie for a year, and then it was you and Ashley Bates, and Ashley having a great career at Hampton. Big South Player of the Year, I think, is a junior. So you went from a lot of success, championships. Everyone wanted to get a piece of you. Then you go to Michigan State, and as you're making your way through college, here comes Paige Bueckers, and we thought Hopkins was a big deal before. Now they're national celebrities with what Paige was able to do and the rest of that team. And that's one reason why I would never put like Paige Bueckers for Hopkins games, because she'd be the first to tell you her teammates got her to where she is. What did you make of how much Hopkins grew after you left? Because I have to imagine it's surreal. You were part of it, and now Paige and her crew take it up to 11.
Credit to social media. Credit to social media because I really thrived off of a lot of my game came from watching, the women's basketball players in Nia Hollie and Tashana Johnson, Alina Starr, Jade Martin, Kanisha Bell, even Tanoa Wade when she played, and Phyllis Webb, Janae Moore, Tia Elbert. Tia taught me how to shoot a layup. Like all of those kids. It goes down the line. I can even go say, my own teammates. Taylor Anderson and Aaron O'Toole. Even though those kids' careers weren't even what it was at Hopkins or whatever. We thrived off that. Tisha Buck out at Red Wing. Like Minnesota was producing athletes. I mean, even Marissa Janning, it's like, and these are kids, you wouldn't necessarily know if I named them now, and like, but I do, they influenced my career, my life. And so once again, I always say to, highlight tapes and stuff, what they do to you and like how they, put you on a different platform. But, it's awesome that these kids are getting that exposure more than just going to a tournament and hoping that a college coach shows up. Social media has provided that. Facebook is bigger now. You see these highlights. I see Paige's highlights videos in like my Instagram, like filler things or whatever. Like, it's cool as hell. It's like, wow, I played there. That's my school. Like Courtside Films is at my damn school. It's like, it's cool. And it's fun to like, relive that and like, almost wish that we had that. I do wish that we had that. I'm not gonna lie. I wish that we had that exposure too. I wish, kids like Nia Hollie could have made a big, like, for instance, we all kind of forget that Nia Hollie tried to dunk the ball against Edina, like, and I threw the pass to her. So, like, I think that's, it's like we forget about things like that because we didn't have, social media wasn't as important and it was just still on the come up. People were still figuring things out in terms of, what you want to exploit, about a person and a player and their player profile and whatever. And so, it's awesome that Hopkins is nationally ranked. I think that is wow. You know, Coach Kaz has created this dynasty that does not get a lot of notoriety, and it has now, and he's deserved that for so long. He's produced like we say that, you know, college athletes and college coaches produce, you know, like he's like the Duke of Minnesota, you know, for men's basketball. Like that's what he is. And so I'm glad that, you know, even he and his staff and whatever are able to get that notoriety as well, because they're putting kids in positions to excel. You know, at the end of the day, no, I didn't have the career that I wanted, you know, here, but I had it at Hopkins. And guess what? I graduated college last week. That is something that is huge to say, and he did that. He played a part in that. You know, there are plenty of private meetings that we've had that, you know, he's teaching me lessons, man. Like, you know, I had to learn the hard way. I'm a kid that definitely, if you tell me the stove is hot, I'm probably gonna touch it. Like, and he taught me. He taught me a lot of things. You know, I can not thank Brian Cosgrove enough for the things that he instilled in me, even when I disliked him for it sometimes. Like, you know, just I'll keep saying it, and I've said it every single day of my life since I've left high school, is control what you can control. Nia, control what you can control. Don't go talk to the refs. Control what you can control. You know, don't scream me. Control what you can control. And so I'm like, okay, all right. You know, it's drilled in me. It's instilled in me. And like, you know, I'm sure it's instilled in hundreds of other kids that have come through his program. You know, he really taught me, actually. You know, I started with 9th grade basketball. I played through the program. I played 9th grade, 10th grade, JV, varsity. It wasn't just, you know, the jump from, you know, 9th grade to varsity. You know, he really instilled going through the program. The Coffees went through the program. Cindy Coffey was an amazing player, you know. She went through the program, 9th grade up. Amir Coffey went through the program. Novak has done, you know, equal amount of job at Hopkins. When I say that Duke and Hopkins are one and the same, they are one and the same. You know, I also say that Hopkins created this culture that prepares you the best way you could possibly prepare for college. And mind you, you cannot prepare for college. Whatever it throws at you, you're not going to be ready for it. But it's the best way to prepare you. I think, you know, just the details that go into, you know, the practice. You know, Coach Kaz, and you know, the just being after practice, we'll have a 2 or 3 hour practice, and you know, I remember Carl and Ben going out to go scout. You know, like, and they're doing this in high school, and, you know, writing up practice plans and writing up scouting reports. And then when I get to college, like, it was nice that, you know, that was already a thing. And like, I already knew it. You know, I had teammates that are like, the hell is this? I don't know what this is. I don't know how to read this. I'm like, oh, okay. Yep. Check. And like, you know, so I think that they created this culture around, you know, the build of the program, of going through the program, but learning the processes, learning the steps to go through it. And also, you know, being able to instill that in other kids. And so, God, I'm so happy I went to Hopkins, man. You know, respect the Hop.
Going off a couple of things you had said in that answer, I wonder how many of the kids who followed Paige and watched all the highlight tapes, how many of them know that there's a Hopkins graduate in the WNBA and Nia Coffey?
Yeah, exactly, right? You know, I say Nia actually over Christmas break, last time I came home. And, you know, I actually asked her, you know, she'd just been traded to Atlanta, I believe, right? She's with Atlanta still. And, like, you know, just watching her go through her years, it's funny because so my freshman year, we played at Northwestern. And I remember, you know, I didn't play a lot that game, but, like, when I got in, they're like, you got to go guard Nia. I was like, I got this. No, I don't. You know, Nia Coffey, even in college, wasn't even Nia Coffey in high school. She was better. I mean, like, I see Nia block shots into the 6th row of the Hopkins Auditorium, you know, and seen her block the same shots in my game in freshman year. You know, it's funny because I checked into the game and I'm like, I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, oh, wow, this is crazy. And so I walk up to her and I just kind of look at her and she's like, hi. I was like, this is so cool. Like, it's so cool. And like, she went on to still have like a pretty good career, you know, still having a very good career in the league, you know, but it's like, Nia Coffey is like one of our very first products. If not, you know, Rachel Banham is one of our very first products that, you know, still don't get enough notoriety like they should have, you know, but also too, that there's nothing wrong in that because you have to consider the time. You know, in 2013, 2012, it wasn't, you know, even you were just starting out as like, hey, like, let me interview you, you know? And like, whereas people are waiting outside the room, like, we're professional athletes already in high school. So it's like, you know, do I wish that we had the social media influence and could be bigger and maybe things would have been different? Yeah, but, you can't rush time. You don't control those things. And, I'm glad that we have Paige to have that platform to put Hopkins on the map where it should have been when Leslie Knight was coming up. And so I'm happy about that shit. See the record, she broke my record. I'm like, I may have scored 431 points in college, but I got, 1,000 plus in high school. So, hey, if I peaked in high school, that's fine. It is what it is. But, I want to be able to give back. So what do you do next? It happened. College is over. And it's like, what do I give back? And I'm ready to give back to this community. I'm ready to give back to these kids. I want more kids to go to college. I want more kids to have an experience, not just, I wish I could have done that. No, even if you're in college and you're going through it, it's hard as hell. You got to make it out though. Keep going. And so that I'm excited. I'm excited about that. I'm glad that, God chose Paige to be the one to put us on the map. That's all it's about. And that's one thing about Hopkins and this community and whatever, I still have all my best friends from Hopkins. Like, it's crazy. People tell you when you go to college, you're going to lose all your friends in high school. You're going to lose all your teammates and you're this, you're that, and your connections. No, not at Hopkins. Not at Hopkins. And I'm proud as hell about that. KK still, she'll FaceTime me every other week or something like that, those kids still talk to me. Those kids are still, they still consider me high up on their list and important to them. So, I have to be important to myself because I am important to those kids. And I love that. I love that I found meaning in that. And so I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep riding off of that wave and influencing kids and helping them get to the next level. I hope Paige can keep doing that. I can't wait till she goes to UConn and can come back and tell stories about Gino. You get to be coached by Gino. You got coached by Kaz, but you get to be coached by Gino. Oh man, that's amazing. So I'm excited. I'm so excited for her, and I hope that she has the utmost unbelievable career in the world. Can't wait. I cannot wait to see what she does.
She's already been interviewed by Breanna Stewart on Instagram. It's like,
that's crazy.
Like, wow, that's surreal. And you see, I guess I did lose most of my friends from high school and college, but I went to Harding. So clearly I should have gone to Hopkins. And then I'll never forget, too, when you brought up the story about Nia, because I had the two of you talk about it, which was hilarious. And then Tia Elbert, to this day, cannot remember teaching you how to shoot a layup. But she said, it's just one of those things where for me it just felt like the norm, or I'm doing something to help others. And you don't realize how your actions can help the younger generation. So I wish there was video of it somewhere so we could remind Tia.
Yeah.
Because I take your word for it.
You know what? The best reminder that I have for it, I was able to be what I was in high school, and I was able to make it to college just because I knew how to shoot a layup. In all retrospect, that's all a college coach really wants. Make sure you know how to shoot something. So, that's all I really need. And I'm grateful for her for that. She took the patience and time out of her day to go help this little scrawny kid that couldn't shoot a layup, clearly, without traveling or looking down at the basket, all those things that you go through when you're first learning how to play basketball. So to see an older person not have frustration in me, but patience, that's big. That's all that matters. You don't have to remember the day. It happened, became who I am, and hey, take pride in that. That's awesome.
But it does bring up a point. I was always wanted to explore this because I remember having you on during the All-Star Series, which was on your birthday, and we had Kira Russell come on, and Ashley Bates told me, and some others. Apparently, when you were little, you were this giant pain in the butt. Like, nobody wanted to deal with you. And I'm like, so what were you like as this up-and-coming player at Farview and the youth program where I guess maybe you were the Deadpool before Deadpool?
I took basketball by the absolute horns, actually the team that Tia was on. So I ended up I was playing for that team for a while, and I was just the best defender. I could defend out the world because I was a little kid and I could run, and bones are just non-breakable or something. So that's how I felt. I felt a little bit invincible on the defensive end. Couldn't shoot a layup, save my life. Smacking the backboard, over the backboard, didn't matter. But you go through, and then so I ended up I didn't make the team or whatever, and so Tracy ended up creating his own team in Farview, and that's when Jazz still played and all these things. And so we gathered a group of kids that ended up being who we are now, and stayed together for the most part. But I remember being called a ball hog. I'll never forget this. I remember exactly who said it, and you're a ball hog, you don't pass the ball. And I was like, I was so hurt. I was so hurt as a kid. And so that's exactly how I began passing the ball, and how that became like my ability, like that star ability that I ended up having in passing, and my IQ in court vision, is because I'm like, nope, I'm not shooting. And I'm a stubborn kid. I was a stubborn kid for sure. Like, even in, my mom would tell me something, I'm like, all right. And I'll just like, do the opposite and totally be like fine being rebellious in that. And so, learning through that, and obviously, there's plenty of kids that go through that, and am I proud of being that? No, it's funny because I actually want to say, I went through some things even in high school. It's like, learning about, it's not about what you say necessarily, it's about how you say it. So like, learning once again too, frustration over patience, or patience over frustration, with other kids and other people around you, and things like that. Yeah, I was a butthole to deal with, but not to that extent. I mean, I wasn't crazy at all, just your typical kid that just wants to win or something, or, playing hard as hell and whatnot. But also too, that's the same reason that, me and Key and Ashley and all those kids, that's why we have the team that, every kid went to college. They went relatively, D1 and stayed together. That's something that doesn't have a lot of notoriety, but, Minnesota Stars, Tracy Martin's Minnesota Stars team was the only team that was formed, in 2010, 2008, and stayed together. I mean, we stayed together and we put each other on the map. We put Minnesota on the map. We were the one team, I think one of the only teams, Adidas teams, to win Boo Williams. So, butthole or not, we're buttholes to everybody and to each other. And so, it's a way that we were able to get things done, the same way that, I could yell or say something to Kiera. She could yell back at me and say something to me. It's like, you know what? I catch the ball, bro. It's like, all right, I got you. Like, and, you forget that a lot of times, when you're dealing with, I would say, the newer generation of kids, but also at the same time, instead of being called soft or sensitive, because once again, I've been the person who has done the yelling, but I've also been the person that's been yelled at. And so even for me, I took some time to sit and understand it is about what you say and how you say it to kids. And like, they're not sensitive. No one's sensitive, but people want to be respected, and that's okay. And I think that we have to change that conversation about kids being, oh, they're sensitive because they can't take yelling, or they're sensitive because, they transferred. No, they're just recalling their autonomy in themselves, and they know their level of self-respect, and I can't be mad at anybody for that. I couldn't be mad at anybody for saying something to me. And, I'm glad that, people said something to me. People cared about me enough to be like, hey, Nia, you're being an asshole. Okay. Kaz was able to pull me aside and say, yo, like, you're kind of an ass, sometimes. And I'm like, at the moment in time, I swear to you, I'm like, I don't like you as a coach, blah, blah, blah. Like, we can take this part out. But, I was like very like reluctant to his authority and his, I was reluctant to what he was trying to teach me. And I was reluctant to everything that anybody was trying to teach me, for sure. Like, was I retaining the information? Absolutely. But was I going to show you that I was retaining the information? No. And so, I thank God that he was able to sit there and say that to me. And like, if I could even say that on air, like I would, I really want to apologize to Angie, for just, yelling at her to catch the ball one day. And I know that really affected her. And, she could have, I don't know, it could have went any other way, but, I had people around me that could, humble you down when you needed that. And there are so many people that haven't had that, clearly, and still need it. But, thank God I had it. Thank God I had it. Thank God people cared about me enough to say that, and to realize, be nicer. Be nice.
That being said, I still find it amusing that you cussed out Paige Bueckers. I never forget when you first told me that story. I've referenced it, and now look what she's become. And like, here's Nia, and Delayla told me, like, the older folks like yourself and Ashley would get on it if the younger teammates, weren't doing what they were supposed to. But I'm going, you cussed out Paige Bueckers.
Yeah.
And how would that go over now?
You know how it went over? She was able to take over that entire, excuse my language, take over that entire fucking program when we left. We left that shit in good hands, and I feel good about that. We left off on a sour note, with that championship, and I'm still sick about it to this day. I mean, I'm not playing basketball anymore. I don't plan on playing basketball, but we can run that shit back. I'm saying you right now, we want to run it back. You give Courtney Fredrickson in here. I'm really, really good friends with Courtney. Really good friends with Courtney. So, like, we run that shit back. Get Chrissy Carr up here from K-State. I'm still good friends with her. Really good friends with her. Let's run that game back. Honestly. Let's pick our own refs. You know, I got my own things to say about that game. But we can run that shit back any day. Any day. Any day. I'm telling you right now. I want you to put that on air. I've not watched the game, and I fully have my whatever about it, and I don't play basketball anymore, but I promise you, if we were to ever run that game back, we're winning that game, with Paige included. So, you know, it set the program up, once again, it set the program up to be nationally ranked, but at the same time, I think Paige also learned in that you got to be the it man. You know, after this last game, even if I played terrible or not, whatever, it's you now, and you're a freshman. You have 4 years, so hey, you better teach it and learn it now. And also, it to me, and also what I learned even when it happened to me, because Nia Coffey's yelled at me like that for sure. I remember we're playing Minnetonka, as a matter of fact, and she looked at me, she grabbed me by my neck. She goes, "I want you," because Kaz put me on every best player, right? You know, I was still good at defense at the time. She looked at me, she goes, "I want you to literally know what that girl had for breakfast." I swear to God. I swear to God. And to this day, I'm not going to lie to you, Joanna Edstrom did not play her last game good at all, because I was trying to figure out what she had for breakfast. I was guarding the hell out of her ass, you know? And so, like, sometimes you need that. You need someone to be like, it's not about yelling at you. It's not about I'm trying to, like, say something that, no. I'm, like, it's more of like a preparing you to expect the best out of everyone around you. And like Paige, you know, you've seen the best before she was even this. And that's something that I've seen in her. I've seen it in her multiple times. You know, a lot of that year for Paige was, Paige, quit passing the ball, shoot the ball. Shoot the ball. Paige wasn't important at the time when we were still playing, but she was. She was important as hell to us. She was an 8th grader that could do the entire team up the court that she's doing now. She could do it as an 8th grader. And so, like, it was one of those things where I expected her to be at the level that we were at, because she was. She had trained long enough. She had proven herself long enough. And now she's at a place in day and age where, you know, Paige has done exactly what I did to her to the rest of her teammates, because you expect them to perform up here. You know, Kaz expected us to perform even up here, and the level was here. So it's like, you know, and she took that shit, she ran with it. She ended up scoring 40 points out of whatever, and I have nothing to do with that. But was she able to expect that of her teammates? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so, you know, you got to give a kid a little bit of confidence in that too. You know, what I said to her wasn't confidence bashing. It's like, hey man, I need you. Shoot the damn ball. Go to the basket. Whatever I'm doing is not working. I need you, bro. So it's like, it was one of those moments, and I'm glad it happened. We didn't win, but hey.
You know, even in your time when Nia Coffey was all the rage, you know, when you and Ashley were growing up together, and with Paige and, you know, Maya Naji, I can't wait to see what I've said. Maya might be the new face of that team, but with Slam and Brian Cosgriff, he was all for it. Like, hey, any publicity we can get, we're happy to have. But when I watched them play, especially this season, you know, interviewing Paige and her teammates, I always made sure to interview someone else, because that's the kind of player Paige was. She wanted to make everyone else involved. So even if she didn't cuss anyone out, you knew if you were playing on the same team as Paige, you had to be ready, because she might dish you the ball and not telegraph it, because the way she can drive and fake. But they'd have every reason to get caught up in the Hollywood narrative. And you had some reasons too. And I never saw that once. I only got to see them in games. So, you know, I'm not going to try to extrapolate or suggest there's some conspiracy, but, you know, Delilah and I become pen pals now, and some of the Hopkins parents, I remember KK Adams was like, yeah, I hope we see you at more games. So they did not let the Hollywood atmosphere get to them. They focused on playing good basketball. I think they would have completed another undefeated season had they been able to hold the state championship. And going off of what we said earlier, the leadership Paige put on that team, where It's not going to be me first. You've got to be ready. I might pass you the ball. You may not see it coming. Be ready for it. And I have to imagine the culture was put in long before you guys and Paige. But to see that play out where, you're getting ESPN levels of coverage, no one had a big head about it. They just kept playing, focused on being good leaders, good basketball players. And I can see why Hopkins is one of the contenders every single year.
The best. Yeah. Yeah. I've always said, and if you go back to even later interviews that I've probably done, I've always said that, the specialty about our Minnesota Stars team was the fact that I was not the one or the only one. I'm having a bad night. Ashley's playing her ass off. Ashley's having a bad night and I'm having a bad night. Kiera's still playing her ass off, and so is Kasia. And then we also have 5 other people on the bench that can play at the same kind of caliber. So, I always say that it's important to have a team that everybody can play. And everybody can play at different levels, different heights. Did Kasia score as much as, Kiera did? No, not at all. But did she do the intangibles that we needed? Absolutely. And you could say that for the same in high school. And because a lot of my teammates from the Minnesota Stars were on Hopkins, me and Ashley thrived together. Me and Kasia thrived together, and everybody else, me and TT thrived together. You look at kids like TT and Variah, those kids, if you ever watch TT play and go back to certain games, TT showed me how to play until you drop. Play until you're so tired you don't have anything left in you, but you do have more left. And she showed me how to give more. There is more. TT literally would come out of the game like, and just like, all right, I'm ready to go back in. Take a sip, take a drink of water, and she still has more to give. And so, I'm looking back at my college experience and I'm looking back and saying like, I don't got no more left. Yes, I do. She did. So why can't I? I grew up and I was, I learned things in that environment. Take what you learn, absorb it, absorb everything that comes your way, whether it's negative, whether it's positive, you got to learn from it. And also not get too high about the highs and too low about the lows. But, going back to this whole, the culture that, the kids before me created, and then, trying to uphold that, in our group of graduates and then on, it's about your teammates. It's not about you, and that's something that, it's funny, as much of, an a-hole that you could call me or whatever, it's never been about me. And I've made that known. I've always made that known. You don't know me as a cocky player. You may know me as an asshole. You don't know me as a cocky player. You don't know me as a ball hog. You don't know me as these things that are just selfish and arrogant. You don't know me as that. You may know me as an asshole, but you don't know me as that, And so I take pride in that. I don't think that that's something that you should want to be known as, but some people thrive off of that, and it is what it is. But I'm glad that, my teammates could look back and say, she may have been an asshole, but she gonna pass the ball though. I take pride in that. That's awesome. And also too, at the same time, I know they'll pass the ball back to me, and because people don't talk about how big that is, on teams in terms of friction and what that creates, and ESPN coming and whatever. People don't know the actual ins and outs of that. We don't know what it actually was and what it probably created. But once again, the reason that it probably seemed, or it was a good situation, and they were going undefeated. They were potentially going to be one of the first undefeated teams to win state and whatever. You got to base that on Paige and the way that she treated her teammates. She treated them as they deserve to be on ESPN just as much as she did. And that deserves more attention. She has teammates that, she doesn't see herself as, anything grander or bigger than them in the grand scheme of things. She makes sure that they feel important too. When you have a Paige Bueckers on the team and she trusts you enough to give up this shot that she can make 80 times in a row to pass to you, that builds your confidence as a player. That builds your confidence as a person. It's like, they're here to watch you and she's giving me the damn ball. So I better make this shit, So it's like, hey, it's about what you build. You see all these teams nowadays that have these 1 or 2 stars. You see these highlight tapes where these kids are dribbling the ball down the court and they have a person up the court, and it's like, what are you doing, sir? It's like, huh? But you don't see that with Paige. Paige may dribble through the entire defense and then suddenly like dish the ball in between somebody's legs. Like, she's still looking for other people. She's not looking for just herself. And she knows that's the difference. She has a life. She knows that she can do that shit any day. She can turn that shit on when she wants. But it's about including everybody else, because here's one thing. Here's the secret to winning a championship and things like that. You need everybody else. You can't do it by yourself. You cannot do it by yourself. You need the other 4 people that are on the court with you, and you need the extra 4 or 5 people that are coming off that bench. You are going to need that shit. So you build it. Really focus on that. I think that is important to focus on at all points in times.
Well, your favorite superhero is Deadpool, so I would expect you to be an asshole. But you are a likable asshole.
That's funny.
Who did you idolize growing up as a basketball player, whether it was working with all those kids at Farview and the youth teams, or someone in the pro game? I know Kevin Durant's your favorite player, but growing up, who was the player that really inspired you?
Growing up,
or players?
I watched South High School all the time. Especially when they were, I want to say maybe they were the first to be actually televised for a game and like recorded and those things. I don't know if you can go back and watch a couple of Taylor Hill's games, but watching Taylor Hill, watching Sadaka Jihad, Aisha Smith.
I televised some of those games.
Yeah. You know what? You did. Sports brand, right? Sports brand.
Yes.
I used to watch those games, man. Isn't that crazy? Life comes full circle, but
you were watching me like.
I was watching you in your early days, dude.
Oh, geez. And when I had hair and, oh, man, I kind of cringe when I watch those games. I'm like, wait, those were games I televised. Yeah. And you know what? Tia Albert, you may have heard this. She was invited to join the team during that championship run. She was on the bench. Yeah, because she got to know Emil Jihad, and Emil invited her, and they're good buddies, and it really is full circle. And now his daughter, one stayed at De La Salle. He and I, it took a little while to warm up, but we call games together, and it's almost like having another Bill Walton alongside me. He makes it fun. So yeah, you watched a lot of South games, probably my broadcasts. Anyway, continue.
I wanted to go to South High School. I went to a camp that year, and I remember actually first meeting Sadaka Jihad and Taisha Smith and Taylor Hill for the first time, and I'm like, oh, man, in awe. And I remember Chelsea Jaycox. I found out that I was actually related to Chelsea Jaycox years later. She ended up going to Hopkins, too. So I found that out years later, but I remember her teaching me how to shoot like a free throw, basically, but with this like weird contraption that you use like to put your hand behind your back, like to lock it there, though. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I remember it just being so hard. I remember her giving me these glasses that, that you use to dribble, learn how to dribble, where it has the giant things right here and you can't look down. I remember learning all of those things at the South Camp and like really like, Mom, I could really be like one of them. Like, I met Taylor Hill today. Like, she signed my shoe. I still have those shoes. I won't get rid of them. And she signed, that whole team signed them. And I remember I wanted to be a part of the South Tigers. Hopkins wasn't up and coming at the time. They weren't really like, I don't really actually.
They'd won a state title in 06, but it was sort of like UConn before their dynasty. They had that incubating period. They were good, but this was before the three-peat, before Hopkins became the frickin' Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly. So I watched a lot of them. I remember being, in awe watching Rutgers on TV when I did. It was when they played in the pink jerseys often, too.
Was that when Pondexter was still a college player?
Yep, Kathy was there. A couple other people. I can't remember.
No, she was drafted in 06. That was before South, so I'm...
You sure?
Yeah, that's right. She was in the 06 draft class. So, I mean, you might have seen her.
A lot of people know this, too. I went to the Hopkins public schools all of my entire life. So, me and Amir Coffey have been going to school since elementary school. And I was actually going to Meadowbrook. I was one of four Black kids that went to Meadowbrook in the Hopkins public schools. And so, that was even an experience in itself. Not a lot of people know that, because I know that it was a huge thing, about inner city kids playing in the outer city schools, or the outer suburban schools, sorry. And, but they had public transportation, to my place. And, so I went to Meadowbrook and went through the lines, went to North Junior High and Hopkins on. And so, it's important to know, like, I didn't know really anything about, basketball ahead of that. I think Nia Hollie had just been traveling, playing traveling basketball and, Hopkins HGBA. So, she wasn't necessarily up and coming at the time either. And so then when I finally actually looked and like, I was like, okay, like I'm going to high school pretty soon. Like, where am I going to go? All these things. And then that's when Nia Hollie became important. But before Nia Hollie was super, super important, there was a Brianna Williams. There was an Aaron O'Toole. There was, who else did she play with on that team? Ebony Livingston. I remember idolizing Ebony and Shannon O'Toole and, Gracia Hudson. Gracia really taught me, how to be nice. Oh my gosh, she's the nicest human being ever. So there were those kids first. Those are the kids that I learned from first. I remember coming to my very first Hopkins Open gym. And Marissa Grossfield was there too. And this is when everybody was invited to these things. And I remember shooting the ball, and I swear to you, Mike, it touched the top of the ceiling. It touched the top of the ceiling, and everybody like kind of laughed at me, and like, they're like, yeah, you shoot pretty high and you don't have any rotation. It's kind of funny, but I still don't have any rotation on my shot. But, even them to take the time out and like, once again, patience over frustration with, a kid, like one young little scrawny kid that just wants to be like them. And it's like, I remember, playing against Marissa Grossfield, and she was crazy good. And was it Kayla Timmerman? Oh my God. I mean, like, just talent everywhere. And so, yeah. Wow. I haven't actually dawned on that or reminisced on that probably ever. So thank you for this interview, because that's nice. That is.
Yeah, so I don't know if we answered the question of who you idolize. Well, we did. And I'm wondering, how many folks came up to you for autographs as, you became kind of like what Taylor Hill was for South? Because that is really interesting to hear that she signed your shoe. And she was an amazing player. I'll never forget the Central South game in 2007 that I covered, sold out gym. And that's when I was sold on the concept that women's basketball could take it places, because it was a packed gym for a girls' game, which wasn't.
Betsy McDonald on that team? Is that her name?
Betsy came a few years later. It was the 2007 team, so it was that Central Super team of Robinson, Kiara Buford, Georgie Jones.
Buford, yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, she went to Minnesota too, right?
Yep, she went to Minnesota, and Theara Taylor was on that team. Ebony Black, and then South had Taylor Hill, Taisha Smith, Phaedra Holmes.
At the time, it wasn't a Hopkins. It was South versus Central, South versus everybody. I was like, oh man, I want to go South.
Right, and then it was like Hopkins Minnetonka. Now it's Hopkins Wayzata, which is turning into its own little.
I didn't know that. Know that.
Last year when they did the double headers, the gym was sold out for the girls' game.
Wow.
At the Lindbergh Center. So they played the boys' game first, and it was the girls' game that had the bigger crowd. It was standing room only because, Wayzata was building themselves up. Mm-hmm. I think they were still on the rise, or kind of laying this foundation when you were playing. But since then, they've built up their program, and now it's turned into what Paige called Duke and North Carolina. Every time those two meet, and because they're in the same section, they meet in the finals now, and it's
wow, good for them. Wow.
It's cool.
Keep the same animosity towards Minnetonka, though. That's really the Duke, North Carolina, literally crosstown rivals. But right.
You touched on a point. And this is something, a lot of the North Minneapolis kids go to Hopkins. I know folks outside of it like to rant about it. Oh, they recruit. And I don't know, maybe because I don't have any ties. Even if you were to recruit, I just don't care. And not that I don't care about what happens to these athletes, but I understand that high school is just a small part in this big picture. It's supposed to be the foundation for becoming leaders and citizens down the road. And sure, everybody wants to have their kid win a state championship, but at the same time, you spoke of autonomy. The kids are going to look after themselves. And, you think about, North Minneapolis, Minneapolis North, they were a powerhouse for all those years, but then the school was perhaps going to close. Well, as a parent or as a student, you're going to look after yourself. And like, I know Delayla Chacolas grew up in that area, went to Hopkins, a lot of kids, yourself included. And when you mention being in a middle school as one of just only 4 black kids in your class, and then you go to Hopkins and you see kind of the melting pot, especially at basketball games, it's a really interesting contrast.
It is. Something that, once again, it is widely publicized in terms of, you look at a kid that is from North Minneapolis and they're going to these suburban schools. And mind you, I would like to note that Hopkins, out of all the 5 lit conference schools, is known to be one of the most diversified schools, you're going to get, especially for a suburban school. You don't necessarily feel like you're in this, like, realm of, you know what I mean? Like for a kid and whatever. And so, really, it's sad to say, what was going on with the Minneapolis public schools and, like in terms of the education system, but, I'm ecstatic to be able to learn more about that system and how to grow it and how to keep kids homegrown. But like, we've had this argument, this thing about, kids staying home at Minnesota. And it's like, what about kids staying home first locally? And, it's like fixing the problem, you got to fix another problem. So I think Tyler Johnson exemplified that. He ended up winning. It's funny because people don't really like consider the couple years that it took North to win that basketball championship, and excel at that he did in football too. But he stayed the course in the inner city schools and whatever. He made sure that not the Minnesota wouldn't be taken out of him, but the North Minneapolis wouldn't be taken out of him. And so he's created, I don't even know if he necessarily knows this, but he's created this dream and this hope for younger kids that have been at the field and the courts, watching them in North High School, not at, some as, fairly fancy as Hopkins, but, that you can still get the same amount of work done. You can still get the same amount of work done and succeed as a kid that goes to a private school. You can do that at North High School. You can. It's possible. Like I said, the kids that I idolized went to South High School, Central High School. And, those are not schools that are necessarily in the prettiest of neighborhoods and all these things, but it's not about that. It's about the work and the things that you put in. And also, once again, too, if you notice about Tyler, he's all about his brothers, right? He's all about his brothers and his teammates. And so once again, you have to make the importance about your teammates too, because then you feel important in yourself. They count on him, but he counts on them too. So it's like, I'm happy. I'm so happy that Tyler reached the heights that he's reached, and he's able to do the things that he's able to do, but also continue to set an example, as this beautiful boy from North Minneapolis that stayed in North Minneapolis. He stayed in Minnesota. He look at what he did for Minnesota alone. And it's like, okay, now he's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He's about to get passes from Tom Brady. Tom Brady and Tyler Johnson. That's beautiful. That is a beautiful thing to hear. Amir Coffey, did anybody, I don't know if anybody watched the game that, who did they play? The Clippers played someone in overtime. But like, he was in there in the last 5 to 10 minutes. That's huge. He signed a 2-way contract, but that's huge. If you know Amir, that those dreams, those aspirations have been a long time coming. So it's like, he's one that stayed home as well, hometown heroes. But hometown heroes also come, who stays, locally. And so I think that Tyler just set in motion a whole new amount of, younger kids, younger athletes that want to play, like our nieces, our nephews, our little cousins that, will stay at home and stay locally and, also challenge the Hopkins. I want, I would have went to North High School had, circumstances been different. I would have been at North High School, and who knows, we probably could have challenged Hopkins for a run for their money, but you got to have somebody that creates that breaking of the barrier, and Tyler was the breaking of the barrier for that. And I'm excited for more people to just stay.
What I've enjoyed most about this conversation is that I'm not sure if you exactly answered my questions the way I intended them to, and yet you still give clairvoyant answers. So even if we're going off on tangents, you bring up some real profound and insightful points. And and Tyler Johnson was probably another reason I didn't cover you, because he was a senior, and that was I remember that North Hopkins meeting, and I called Tyler Johnson Mr. Clutch because, he was the guy, as you said, he was going to carry the team.
There's a lot of different ways to touch a history book without being the all-time leading scorer, without being the this, the that, the ESPN, it guy, whatever. North High School won a championship. And guess what? All those boys in that picture, whereas they could have been on the street or gunned down or something, they were in the gym. They're in the gym. They were winning championships. They're trying to win championships. And now they're in college. They're in college and they're continuing their career. They're staying out of trouble. And I think that that's important. You know, I grew up, you know, regardless of the school that I went to, there's still a lot of things that I've seen. There's still a lot of things that I was exposed to as a kid that, you know, not a lot of kids, you know, in the suburbs will understand, because they're not, you know, exposed to those things. And there's nothing wrong with that either at all. But, you know, it says something for the city. It really, like, it hits you in the heart as a genuine, like, wow, like, look at them go, you know, like, you know, parents in the inner city are worried about, you know, having to bury their kid before the kid has to bury them. And that's a true fear. That's a true thing. You walk, you know, through the neighborhoods and, like, you know, you may get hit with a stray gun. You know, before I went to college, I had gotten a call actually right before a game about my grandfather being shot in the face and grazed with a bullet, just because, you know, kids are just, you know, recklessly shooting. It's crazy. I met a kid 2 weeks before I had left for college. It was a little boy. He was 6 years old, and 2 weeks later, told me he was killed by a stray bullet. And I remember him asking me in CVS, he's like, "Hey, you play basketball? I know you." And he was like 6. He's 6 or 7. And he died because he was in his house walking up the stairs, and a bullet went through his house because someone shot, you know, by his house or whatever. And it's like, we have to live that. That's realistic for us. And so to watch North win a championship like that, and, you know, a championship actually against Hopkins, you know, win something so big, and you look at these boys and you look at what they could have been in, you know, what they could have succumbed to in terms of their exposure, it makes you want to cry. It gives you chills, because it's like, you guys weren't a statistic. That's all we're trying not to be, is trying not to be a statistic. You know, I hope that people understand that, you know, going out to these suburban schools or whatnot, it's not about, you know, championships and, you know, a better education even, because, you know, kids don't really care about school, let's be honest. It's about not trying to be a statistic. You don't want to be a statistic. And that's okay to have belief and merit in that, but it's also okay to have merit in the fact that, you know, Tyler Johnson was able to do what he did and stay. So, you know, there's great points to both conversations, and I think both conversations need to be had.
And I should clarify that North Hopkins meeting, both schools won their state championships in their classes, Hopkins in 4A North and Class A, and oh, that was great. Tyler Johnson and Amir Coffey, two folks who probably knew each other too. And one of my favorite memories. And it reminded me of an interesting tangent, because I remember you mentioning that JP McCura is one of your favorite players.
I love that, man.
And in my head, I'm going, so how did 2014 play out? Because Lakeville North won the state championship against the school where a lot of your buddies played in Hopkins. And I remember that one. He dropped 42, and there was that 5-point play he wasn't a part of, but that still helped Lakeville North win. And so this was after the notoriety of Hopkins Shakopee, and it was going to be Hopkins' year. And JP McCura, he didn't win it by himself, but he played a big part. As a basketball fan, how torn were you that your favorite player is winning a state championship at the expense of the school you're rooting for?
You know, it was surreal, because if you count back to that week, that is where the giant thing happened. You know, you forget that Hopkins was on ESPN before, you know, the whole thing now. They were on ESPN for holding the ball for however many minutes. You remember that? The game before
right.
that?
Well, Shakopee was playing zone because they were worried about getting beat man-to-man. Hopkins, I think, had more athletic. So Hopkins, and I wasn't blaming them for it. There's no shot clock, and Shakopee's playing zone, so Hopkins is just playing within the system. Exactly. And like, all right, if you're going to hold the ball, I mean, if Amir Coffey didn't hit that half-court heave, I think we would have had 10 overtimes.
That's crazy, because I wasn't allowed to even, like, congratulate him until, like, weeks after, because me and him had been mad at each other for something. I forgot what it was. But so I was like, he hit the shot, I was like, nah, whatever. But you know, like,
yeah, I'm sure that's what you were thinking. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I make that all the time in practice.
I mean, it was surreal, because I was there at the game, so I saw it happen. I'm like, but then, so, you know, they ended up playing Lakeville North next, and that was a huge game. You know, I was just talking to my girlfriend about how the feeling around Minnesota basketball, you know, it's like Minnesota made women's basketball feel important. Like, that is nuts. You know, you feel that. You feel you know, people are as popular as they are with women's basketball because that's what Minnesota is. They made that important. They made Minnesota basketball important. And so like the feeling, you know what I'm talking about, when you're going to the Target Center to go watch these teams play, even it's the first day, I think one of my most favorite like feelings games going into was like, I think we're playing maybe Hill Murray, and it's like the quarterfinals, the game where you can miss school and, kids can like, those are so fun. They're so fun. They're so fun to be a part of. They're so fun to, miss school for. And, just the atmosphere, the feeling, the back-to-back tournaments. It's like, and the feeling didn't even change. We thought the feeling would change, when they moved venues from the Target Center to the Williams Arena. I won my last championship in the Target Center or whatever.
Hey, you got a chance to practice at a court you would play at years later. But you mentioned the atmosphere, so continue with this point.
Yeah, the atmosphere is like, it's so surreal. Like you feel like you're a professional athlete. Like you feel like you have, that kind of popularity and whatnot, and like truly like it's a job again. And it's like, you smell the concessions out there, you go and get yourself some fries and, you watch a game. And so like, watching Lakeville North, I remember not being able to find a seat, first of all. And so, I have to go up into the nosebleed rafters or whatever. And then I was like, I forget that. I'm going to find a seat somewhere. So, we're scouring the whole Target Center trying to find like random seats that no one's sitting in, because also too, De La Salle plays before that. It's hard to get people up out of the seats. And so it's like, trying to find a seat. And like, when I tell you that was still to this day one of the most unreal games that I almost wish I could have been a part of as a teammate, because I wanted to play against JP Makura. Like, that man right there, he's the Christian Laettner, first of all, of, Lakeville North and like basketball. He's the Christian Laettner actually in college basketball too, Xavier. He's known for this this thing, which is, is awesome. But, I don't think people understand like the fire and the grit and the athletic ability he had. It was crazy. But like, with like a kid from Lakeville North, the last thing we knew about Lakeville North was Rachel Bannum. And it's like, yo, this kid right here, and you take a team like Hopkins, especially that year, it's like, oh, wow, did he destroy him? Yes, he did. But that, and it's like, what do you learn from that? So a lot of my game in like what I've incorporated years after that, watching JP play was, I guess, maybe being a little bit of an asshole. But like, I think watching him play, he created this perspective for me that you can play with fire and with passion and be loved for that shit. You can, because like, that's what he did. He did. And you can expect the best and the greatness from everybody else and, still be loved for that. But you have to find the difference in that. Like, I didn't see him say anything bad to his teammates and, crazy to his teammates. But like, did he play with that same kind of fire, great energy? Hell yes. You watch him at Xavier, it was no different venue, nothing. And so it's like, different people I can get my inspirations from too. But JP he's huge in that, and he's still a really damn good player. I think that he should have a spot in the league somewhere, somehow. But hey, kudos to him. That championship game was crazy. I don't know if you remember. He did this like weird turnaround dunk. Oh my God.
I covered that one. I interviewed him after the game.
John Moore. It had to be on John. Yeah, John. No, it was on Trayvon. It was on Trayvon Edwards. Still love those guys too. Love those guys too. That
was just a crazy tournament too, because I think that was supposed to be Tyus Jones's year. That was his last year as a high school player. Apple Valley gets knocked out in sections to Cretin-Durham Hall, and then it's like, well, who's going to win it now?
Well, in itself was very good. I mean, Joe Rosga was good. Oh my gosh, Joe Rosga, Sam, the hair. What's his last name? I forget.
I covered them once or twice in that era, and now I've been following them with Trey Holloman and company. But I mean, that was just 2014 was a really interesting year because the favorites that were supposed to win, at least in 4A, no offense to what happened to you and Hopkins, but the Hopkins girls were like, oh, they're going to win 6-7 in a row. EP knocks them out in the semis. Apple Valley, it's going to be the serenade, the send-off for Tyus Jones. They're gone. Like, what? And we're like, oh, who's going to show up? Well, it speaks to what you said earlier. And 2014 was a huge example of that, where the favorites we thought would win it didn't, and we still were in for a show.
Yeah, I mean, and that, like I said, you know, the Minnesota basketball tournament is, oh, it's as big as the state fair, if we're gonna be honest, you know, and like for instance, like I take the game that I came back from college for, so this had to be my freshman year. Yeah, it was my freshman year because McKinley ended up going to college right after that. You know, had a great year at Colorado, but the year with him and Trey Jones and Champlin and Apple Valley, you know, Gary Trent was there for a while before that. You know, I know he wasn't there a part of that year, but you know, Trey, like Trey at Duke, you know, I love Trey at Apple Valley. You know, McKinley at Colorado. Have you seen McKinley at Champlin? It's like in awe that you see these players as soon as they get to college. And it's like, wow, like I knew you before this. You know, I went to prom with McKinley, so it's like it was crazy to come back and watch that game and see him absolutely go crazy and then fully dominate the Pac-12 the way he did at such a small height too. You know, people don't consider that. People were like, you know, why are you going to Colorado? He went to Colorado and did his thing. And so it's like, no matter what, congratulate these kids, no matter where they go, whether it's D1, D2, JUCO, it doesn't matter because they're not a statistic. They're part of that 1% that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you can't make it. It's too hard. No, it's not. You just need the right people to tell you that you can and to keep going. So, yeah,
You,
I have a lot of state history games, man.
you and I would almost need to do another podcast just to discuss all the history that we've witnessed. Or, well, you got to live it. You were part of it. And at the same time, and of course, you and your girlfriend and Ella, it's a great relationship. And I find it amusing because you mentioned you went to prom with McKinley Wright. And I remember a story from one of your former coaches and Chuck Burmeister, how I guess you and he told me you had a crush on Amir Coffey and that you wouldn't let anyone else near him.
It's funny because we all joke about the Amir thing. You know, it stemmed from like third grade. I was in love with Amir when Nia Coffey and Sydney Coffey said, you know, because I was always mad at Nia because she had my name. Actually, Sydney Coffey was my kindergarten buddy. She was, you know, the older classes would come down to the kindergarten room and take care of us and like, you know, play cards with us or help us do art. And so Sydney was my kindergarten buddy. And she goes, oh, like I have a sister the same name as you. And like, you know, this little bad kid. And like, she has my name, like kind of mad, you know. And actually Taylor Anderson and her sister were my first two bullies. Isn't that crazy, right? Like crazy. And I remember being, you know, trying out for the team and Taylor's like, oh my gosh, you're huge now. I'm like, yeah, I'm bigger than you know? So I think that was a surreal moment. But I remember them saying like, hey, like my brother's going to come here. He's going to beat you up. And I'm like, no, I don't care. Like, you know, it is what it is. And like he came and I was like, oh, wow, he's really cute. And so he was actually one of my very first crushes. And then, you know, me and Amir ended up growing all through high school. Actually, this very like funny story. So his mom ended up calling my mom after a day at school. We were playing kickball on the field, and whenever Amir had like size 13 feet, I swear, in like 5th grade, 3rd grade. Like he was a big kid, you know? So he would come up, you know, he's coming up to the batting plate or whatever, you know, he's about to kick the ball. So whenever Amir kicks, everybody's like, everybody go out to the outfield. You know, he kicks the ball far as hell. So it's like, okay, we're going to get this kid out because we can never get him out. He was this athlete. He was already playing basketball. He was already better than everybody at everything. So it's like, okay, so I caught the ball. He kicked it. I caught it. Got him out. Like, no matter what, you catch the ball, you're out. He didn't want to get out, you know? So I'm like, you know, I ended up calling him. I called him out his name. I called him, you know, little B word or whatever. And this is in 3rd grade. And he got so mad. He kicked me in the shin. He just straight up kicked me in the shin like he was kicking the ball. I cried. I was sad. And I was more sad because, like, I had a crush on him, too. So it was like, and then so we ended up both getting in-school suspension for a week for recess, and like we got close through that, and like we actually became really good friends after that. And from the time on, and like I said, I don't remember what I was mad about him for that championship year run, but probably something similar, something that had to do with that. I don't know, who knows. But yeah, no, we've stayed really great friends. It's funny because there's a lot of Actually, I've asked him for advice my first year. I remember texting him and I'm like, hey, how do you get through, like feeling like you are not the best on the court or, all these things, blah, blah, blah. And like he candidly literally told me, he goes, I'm going to be honest, like I know you're a girl and all, but you got to walk out there like you got the biggest balls on the court. I know you can't put that in there, but that's exactly what he told me. And like, that is what I carried through high school. That is exactly how I carried myself. And that is why people probably call me an asshole, but he told me to do it. Shit. So I'm like, all right, take the best advice I can get. He's number one in the state. And, had I not been who I am and whatever, I'm very confident in who I am and always known who I was, who knows? But, Amir's a very special person in my life. We don't talk as often, but, it's nothing, when we do talk, it's not a weird, awkward conversation. I'm so proud of him. I watched him literally grow from being 6 feet in freaking third grade to literally 6'7", and it's like, I've known his family, been very close to his family for a while, and just watching him do the things he's been able to do has been quite amazing because I've seen it up close, and I know how good he is as a person. He's a very nice, genuine guy. He means a lot to people, and I'm proud of him. I'm so happy for him.
Now, the way you cultivated friendships as a child makes it kind of funny how you and I became friends because let's just say there was no kicking of the shins when we first met up. So I don't know if I should have been concerned or relieved that you didn't come at me like the way you did with your teammates or Amir Coffee at such a young age.
I'll test a little bit of my aggressiveness to the fact that I was always, I was raised around a bunch of boys, man. I was never the kid that's, playing on the swings. I was the kid playing cops and robbers. You can ask anybody that. I'm still close to even our playground supervisor and, even a lot of my teachers in elementary school. They love me, love me because they those are the people that believed in me. They saw me for what I was, and I'm bad as hell in elementary school. I can tell you plenty of stories about that, but once again, frustration over patience or patience over frustration. And, those teachers played a part in that for me. And, it's funny. Yeah, there was no kicking of the shins for our friendship. And I'm proud about our friendship, Mike. I really am. You are something really great to this community. You're really great to me. And, shit, you came at a time where I needed it. A time where I'm being humbled, understanding things, understanding people, differences in people and stuff. And so, I got to give you guys all thanks for that. It's a lot of people that had patience with me, patience with, knowing that, you go through these things and you grow through these things too, though. And so I just thank the people that are still a part of my life and still, allow me to be a part of their life, see me as more than what frustrations happened, whatever, because also too, I'm not going to make any excuses or anything who knows, your home life and everything else, things can change you and, make you the way that you are. And so I'm glad that people were able to see past that and see my growth and see who I could be eventually, and still trying to be,
You touched on this before. What would you say was the most exciting moment of your basketball career, high school, college, or both? And what was the most embarrassing moment?
Ooh, most exciting moment of my career. That championship against Eastview, absolutely, will take the cake at number one because I had never beaten Maddie Giebert. I personally never had beaten Maddie Giebert. And I would say that for probably Ash and my teammates too, because I've always played with Ash. So, the rest of my team as well, in terms of the Minnesota Stars, but also too, Kiera had beaten Maddie Giebert a couple times, being with Kennedy and Eastview. But we had never beaten Maddie Giebert. Not Eastview, Maddie Giebert. We've beaten Erica Schlosser and all the Taylor Conans and Fury and whatnot, but we never beat Maddie Giebert. And Maddie Giebert is one of those kids that has the shot. I will put her up against Steph. I would put her up in any shooting contest to this day, Maddie Giebert. And once it's up, it's in. There's no stopping it. And so, that game against Eastview was the most fun game of my entire life. It was the most nerve-wracking game. And then all of a sudden, I remember exactly every play. I've watched it, countless times before I even play in college just to remind myself who I once was. And also remind myself that you had fun doing this shit at one point, I watched that game and I look at it and I'm like, I just go back to it just to remember the feeling of that night, even the rest of the night, because after our team wins, would win a championship or whatever, we'd go to TGI Fridays. That's a tradition. I'm sure that they still do that. And then they tissue paper Kaz's house, they teepee his house. So, just remembering the feelings of that entire championship and like, that one being ours, we deserved that one. TT deserved that one. She worked so damn hard for that, and vice versa. And if you knew like the ins and outs of like our team and, that loss to Eden Prairie and what actually happened and then what took place, and then for that to take place the next year, it was completely surreal, even stretching from the game where, because we played Eastview 3 times that year. We played them, at the breakdown or the Olaf tournament, which was controversial as hell. It was crazy game that day. We played them, at the breakdown, which was huge. There was a bunch of people there for that. And then we played them for the championship. And so, it was a fun game. And then so I'm going to go with that at number 1, but I'm going to go with number 2 with being Oregon, man. Sabrina Ionescu, what? I mean, unreal. Sabali, Satu, like, oh my God, unreal. Ruthie Hebert, I played with her. I was actually teammates on the same team with her at the USA training camp. So I knew Ruthie previously before that. But that game, and then the amount of people, like, if you come to Brez, the fans are unbelievable there. They get that thing rocking. And so, we went into that game. I remember looking at Jenna and looking at all my teammates, and we're all like, hey, no matter what happens, y'all, we stick together with this shit. We're together in this. And so, we went out there and, like, to be honest, we were all nervous as hell. I truly, like, no one in there thought that we were gonna necessarily win that for real, because what Oregon was that year. And, we also had lost to Oregon a couple years prior to that by like 40. I mean, literally obliterated us on their court, but we got them back, So that game in itself, and actually that game was important to me too, because, I actually played, I played that game. It didn't expect to play at all, but really came up big. Erin Boley as well, she was on that team. I played with Erin Boley at the USA 3-on-3. She was my teammate for that. So I knew Erin before that, and knew that she could shoot lights out. And she actually, I swear to you, Mike, first half, she was lighting us up. She had 24 before we ended up, like, I actually was guarding her. I felt important about my defense. I remember, defense is a important thing that coach really preaches. If you can't play defense, you ain't gonna play. And so, being able to guard her and stop her, I think that's a huge highlight for myself. We'll talk about the 24 later. That wasn't, whatever. Take that part out. That wasn't on me. But, just
you still won the game. So as long as you score more than the opponent does, it doesn't matter if you get 24 or 44, right?
Sure. But, beating Oregon, oh my God. And like the feeling afterwards too, like, we really got the feeling of how beat up and how, like, tired your body is. But, like, Sabrina Ionescu, holy smokes. I mean, that's it. That's the T. She is something unreal. And the next person you're going to see that's like Sabrina will be Paige. So that is beautiful. I cannot wait for Minnesota to be put on the map because of that. But Sabrina was something different. So to be able to, like, win that, it's equivalent to probably the feeling to beating Ohio State our freshman year. And like even watching Tori have that, crazy run for herself for her senior year as well. But yeah, I definitely have to say that ECU game, and definitely Oregon, because there's not a lot of people that say that they beat Oregon.
Right. You only had 431 career points, but you'll always have that win over Oregon to talk about. What were some of your more embarrassing moments? I don't know if you remember that part of the question, but I don't blame you, though, with your photographic memory of Eastview and Oregon.
Embarrassing moments.
It's okay if meeting me is up there on that list. I won't take offense.
No, not at all. I've had quite a few embarrassing moments. Actually, as a matter of fact, I don't know if this is necessarily an embarrassing moment, but, like, it's something that I, like, can touch on. Like, it's funny because I got, like, dubbed as, like, I can't shoot, as if I can't, but I can. I chose not to shoot any, like, outside shots, threes, anything my freshman year. One, because I was so terrified to airball in an arena full of 5,000 plus people. I was very, like, scared to hear, like, air ball, and I'm like, I'm just not even gonna shoot it, just by off chance. Like, I wouldn't even give myself, it's one of those things, like, it's 50-50. Either you shoot it and you make it, or you shoot it and you miss, but I didn't even take the chance. So actually, if you go back and look, probably a lot of those points not accounted for is because I didn't take any shots. But so I would say that that's embarrassing on my part because I let myself kind of get, fearful of something so damn small. But like in terms of embarrassing funny, well, my teammates will definitely say, including my coach, don't touch me in practice, don't touch me in a game. I'm beyond sweaty. I mean, I had a designated chair on the bench when I come in and out of the game just because of how much I sweat. Like it has a towel on it and everything. Beautiful, beautiful chair. No one sits there. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't have really like a lot of embarrassing stories, or maybe not embarrassing stories that can be on air for that matter.
Well, at least no one can question your sweat equity.
That's very true. Working hard or hardly working, huh?
Oh, you were working hard. You didn't have to prove yourself to me, even if you averaged just 3.4 points per game in your career. It's like, hey, you went D1. How many kids can say that? Of all the venues you got to visit, which one was your favorite? Where did you love playing the most?
It's funny because a lot of people love to play home. I love playing away games. Love playing away games. Probably should not put this on air. Chrysler Arena is a very fun place to play. And it's fun to go beat the Wolverines there too, because it's fun there. It's very like it's a new area. Indiana is nuts. You cannot hear absolutely anything, kudos to their fans as well. They give the women's basketball program, the support system that you would ever want for a program, that's for sure. So you can't hear anything in there. Very old assembly hall is very old and like modern. Favorite place to play? I wouldn't say it's my favorite place, but Oregon was beautiful. Do I think it's cursed? Do I think we were cursed playing there? Yes. I don't think that the game was fair. I think Oregon is beautiful though. I think Oregon's court is so quote unquote trippy. You kind of get distracted, like if you should shoot or if you should look at the giant tree that's on the floor, Pretty cool. I think Oregon has the nicest of gyms I've ever seen.
What did you enjoy most about your life as a college athlete? You've told us all of the highs and lows and how the journey helped you grow in ways you probably didn't even realize or consider when you entered that green campus in East Lansing and traded the blue for the green. But looking back now that you're done and have completed that phase of your career, what did you enjoy most about it?
Learning every day. Of just learning every day. Like I said, kids don't really like school. That's no secret to that. But, when you're learning things that are bigger than just like the books that you're handed, when you're learning things that you can't necessarily write down or you can't, type in a Google Doc, you got to remember that, off the top, when you run into a situation and you have to, act fast, you take things that you learned and lessons that you learned. And so, just straight up learning. And I wouldn't have said this, last year, 2 years ago, whatever, but, now that the process is actually completed and I'm starting a whole new process of my life, I know the things that I need in my life. I know the things that I don't need. I know the things that, warrant, mad, sad, depressed, angry Nia, or things that warrant positive, look for, bigger than life things and keep going and wake up the next day Nia too. So just straight up learning here and learning, don't get too high about the highs or not too low about the lows, but always praise God in the end, no matter what. And, I met some fantastic people. I went through lots of trials and tribulations, but at the same time, I think those people have helped me get to where I am, and I think that they'll play a part in helping me to get to my next place as well. And so, learning and meeting people, networking. One thing about the Spartan community, I think one of the important things to note, like funny things that ended up happening. We traveled to Europe freshman year. So we played in Italy, France, and Paris. Yeah. And literally, like we're standing in the middle of the Coliseum, and somebody goes, "Go green!" And like so we say, "Go white!" right after, and it's like, wait, we're in Rome. We're literally in Rome, in the middle of the Coliseum, and like there's a Spartan there. and then we go through the airport, and go on the train from Italy or Rome to Paris, and it's like, or we went to London. Sorry, we went to Paris, France, and then London, in those three places. And you get go green, go MSU, woo. It doesn't matter who it is. We're a network. We're Spartan Nation, truly, truly are around the world. Spartans are global, and so just once again, staying a part of this process and a part of this program, I'll have lifelong Spartan buddies, Spartan warriors. I learned really, truly what it means to be a Spartan, man. Take pride in that shit. I'm forever embedded in Michigan State. This is my place. This is my home. And even Minnesota, that's my place. That's my home. And so being able to differentiate between the two, and also, have a fond love for both of them. Also too, people go to college and, don't love high school anymore. They hate it, or, they don't like their hometown. My first 3 years I spent not wanting to come home. I didn't come home. I did not want to come home, especially because of, my career not being what it is or whatever. But learning that you love and appreciate both, and both are reasons that you are the way you are, it counts for a strong build. But learning is so important.
Well, and you touched on this with me earlier in the week, and beforehand, as you continue to learn, and I've got a feeling that's not going to stop no matter how old we get.
Yeah.
But now that you're done, now that you've had this time and you don't have to worry about practices or workouts anymore, what are some ventures, what are some ideas you're exploring as you transition from life as an athlete for the last 10, 15 years, and now you're joining the rest of us in the real world?
It's funny because I decided long ago, actually before I went to college and whatever, I've never ever said that I wanted to go to the WNBA. And it nothing against it at all. I just didn't want to play basketball further than that. I don't know. I have no idea why, but
if they had offered you, would you have gone?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Sure. Heck yeah.
But it wasn't, you weren't WNBA or bust.
Yeah. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I think that, and I'm excited to be, an ambassador for this, hopefully, but I think that the WNBA needs to be put on a higher platform in the minds of these young women playing basketball. I don't think the importance around it is as big as it should be. I heard a lot of the times growing up, you don't go to the leagues because you don't get paid or this, that, and the third, or, but that's not true. Making it to the WNBA is just as important as getting drafted into the NBA, but we don't have that importance in people. Honestly, there are a lot of people that don't give that support to the WNBA that they need because of that. And it's being instilled in young kids to not reach for those goals or those dreams. So, I hope that more people, I hope that people like Lindsay Whalen are able to instill that in her kids. Hey, we're fighting for a championship, but I'm fighting to put you in the WNBA. Not that college is the last place, last stop. So I think that that's important to note. But I've really been excited about hopping into this I guess ordinary lifestyle of being a regular person. Not being known as an athlete, not having to wake up every day for workouts and stuff like that. But really, really, I found a kind of love in structuring my own life. Once again, I'll touch on, being called an asshole earlier. I'm able to change that view, to people. Maybe people may still think that of me or whatever, but I'm able to create my own profile of who I am. I'm able to recreate myself and able to, build my name on what I want to build my name on, not, what everyone else thinks of me. And I'm a good person. I have a good heart, and I'm ready to show that. I'm ready to be that, exemplify that to the utmost, standards. But I'm excited to be able to recreate myself. I'm Nia Hollie, but I'm not Nia Hollie, the basketball player anymore. And that's fun. So I have a couple, business ventures in mind that I'm coming up with that hopefully, really take off, and, people that see this interview really dive into, because it's going to be something great for our community, something great for Minnesota, something great for, the rest of basketball, and just people around, college students as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that, actually.
To paraphrase Bob Ross, it's your canvas when you create these businesses. So you're the creator. So you get to find out at your own pace whether or not this is something you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hopefully you kind of inspired me a little bit. Might hop into the podcast business a little bit too. Spout some of my ideas randomly. We go on these tangents,
That seems to be this entire interview is going off on tangents, but you and I just have so much in common.
So much.
And it's something I never would have guessed 5 years ago. And not to put you on the spot, but I still say this. I've said this publicly, and I don't care. I'll say it again because it meant something when you told me that you consider me one of your best friends. And I'm going, what did I do to get that consideration? And to this day, I still don't know. I've tried to guess, and I stop myself because I don't want to overthink it. But it's like, man, I really resonated here. And I'm seeing more examples of that with all the players, even the ones I've covered at Hopkins now or elsewhere, that enjoy it. I guess they open up or they just respond to me. So yeah, I don't know what I did, but
you're a good guy. Good guy. What's up? Yeah, no, like I said, you create this avenue, this level of, you provide a level of importance. And honestly, I think a lot of it probably plays into us being females, I guess, too. And being girls, they just want to feel important at the end of the day. They want to feel important. So you asking to interview someone and then us creating like a relationship beyond that and just being like, close. And I'm able to actually, tell you things that I'm not able to say to a lot of people. And mind you too, you're told to not necessarily trust the media and talk to the media. And I'm like, nah, my media guy's pretty cool. Like, I like him. Like, Pete's pretty damn awesome. So it's like, one of those things. And also too, like, you provided me with a means to understand the media. Understand that portion, because it's become such a huge part of sports and like our pop culture and our world. Like, if you're not on social media or you're not being like, backed by these crazy writers like, Woj, Adrian Woj, it's like, who are you? It's almost, social media is almost important than the actual sport being played. If you're not being televised, or if a kid's not being like on camera with it, they're not going to do it. So it's like, you have to be able to understand that realm and that world too, because also a lot of kids run into, controlling narratives and slipping up and maybe saying the wrong thing or talking a little bit too further, a little bit too much. So it's like, you also like were a big part, intricate part of understanding those things as well.
It goes back to like, okay, well, you and Courtney are friends, so it'd be fun to relive that championship where you got to play each other, or the 2015 championship when you beat Eastview and you got to beat Maddie Giebert for the first and only time. Just because even going back 4 or 5 years, you have all of these archives and just a lot of these stories that are hard to find. And so that's why I brought it up, not to like say, poke fun at, oh, haha, you lost, because hey, you're a much better loser than I ever would be. But just to help preserve history, if you get where I'm going with that. And I just see a lot of opportunity to preserve all these moments in history that, a lot of these newer fans may not know about, that followed Paige and maybe heard about Hopkins now, but as we talked about earlier, probably had no idea who Leslie Knight was.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or maybe even Nia Coffey. Mm-hmm. And all the other Division Ones. If I tried to name all the D1 athletes at Hopkins, I would be here all day because I can't remember them all. There's so many of them. And Taylor Anderson didn't go in basketball, went to track, one of the fastest kids I've ever seen. Yeah. And as we touched on earlier, they all played a role. Maybe you got the attention as Miss Basketball, and it was hard to argue against you winning that. But
you wouldn't have got that had it not been for, Ashley catching every single one of my wildly crazy passes, or Kiera hitting the damn shot, like being on a team that like, exuded that. And like, I never even equated that to being me. Like, like I said, Doug, when that happened, when I won Miss Basketball, I was highly surprised, especially because like we hadn't won that year, everything, Abby Scheid had an amazing year. Taylor Conan had a fantastic year. Let me mention her real quick, congrats to her and her North Carolina career, and even like, making it through all the things that just kind of happened with their program. But like, Taylor Conan didn't get enough credit like how she could have gotten, because, social media once again wasn't, where it is today. But, kudos to that kid, man. She's crazy player, crazy athlete. Abby Scheid, I remember, actually, as a matter of fact, we were playing Northwestern this year, and like right before tip-off, it's funny because all my teammates looked at me like, what the hell? I looked at her, I was like, hey, I'm so happy for you. I just want to tell you that. Like, clearly our careers are two totally different things in terms of college. She had a very successful college career at Northwestern, but, Abby Scheid, it's worth people knowing that she was leading the league in three-point percentage. I don't think people understand how hard that is, first of all, to do, but like to be consistent in it. I mean, like, and to be able to look at, my coach be like, yeah, I know her. I know she can shoot. I know these things about her, like I can, even fill out a scouting report if you wanted to, but like, just giving her that credit that she is, a damn good player. But, just want to give credit to all these kids out here.
Where would you like to be if there's anything you could accomplish as far as goals or hopes or dreams, whether it's your business ventures or anything else? If you had that dream job you knew you would get, or that dream scenario, what's something that you're striving for now that you are Nia Hollie after all these years?
I want to be known as the person that didn't just come back, but gave back and really gave back. I mean, I want to, from the bottom of my heart, I want to make a venue that, every athlete can come play at, come go to, make a venue in North Minneapolis that isn't the YMCA, isn't, North High School where you have to go to the gym or go to the whatever and let you feel safe in, I want to be able to come back and give the knowledge that I have in terms of recruiting and in terms of when you're looking for colleges and looking for places and, learning, and also instilling in kids that your mental health is important. Everyone else's mental health around you is important, instilling how to believe in yourself and, tell yourself that you're important to you, and then you're important to everybody else, but you have to be important to you first, like really giving back. Not that like, oh, I came back home and I did not really want to like dive deep. I want to get down and dirty. I want to get my hands dirty and like really helping kids. I want to like insert myself into the North Minneapolis public schools and help those kids, not become a statistic too. Because it only took a couple of us to have that mindset and make it out. And was my journey any easy? No. Was Tyler's journey probably easy? Probably not. It looks like it might have been, but it probably wasn't at all. So it's like, you got to give that information out. You got to give that information back. And I think that is my job. I feel like that's my calling. My name actually means purpose. So, I have a purpose in life to fulfill, and I got a lot to give. So I'm going to keep giving.
Well, Nia Hollie, you and I covered a lot of ground, and if we had more time, or if we just had a full day just to talk nonstop, I think you and I could touch on even more subjects. And we might have to save that for a spinoff, or have Gabriella come on and show some of her gymnastic skills, or even talk about the sport. There's so many directions I could go with you, and so it's tough to figure out when to pause, and that's what I'm going to call it, a pause, because I have a feeling you and I will be congregating again in some way, shape, or form. But thanks for the time, and it was really nice to catch up with you. My one regret was not being able to attend one of your games because the Spartans didn't come to visit Minnesota, and it's hard for me to break away with high school coverage. So this isn't like going to a game. I really wanted to be there for your senior day, but having this conversation with you and reminiscing about just so many different avenues, I'd say is a sufficient replacement.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And I thank you. I thank you for interviewing me. I thank you for, like, even though my career was what it was, for 31 points and 3.2, whatever, like, you still gave me the platform to be able to speak my story and show my truth. And, and you gave merit to that. You believed in me too. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Absolutely.
As you said, you got to accomplish something that not many in your neighborhood thought they could do. And what you said, I think, speaks loudly to the person you want to be, where it doesn't matter how many points I scored. I'm living proof that you can grow up in North Minneapolis or come from anywhere. You can be anyone, no matter the situation, and come out as an inspiration, as a stronger individual, a good citizen. You don't have to believe the stereotypes. And that's what I admire most about you. I don't care how many points you score and we may joke about it, but I can't wait to see the change you're going to inspire, whether it's through your business ventures or even just what you accomplished as a high school and college athlete. I'll never forget all the little kids who came up to you, and even all the Gophers fans who said nice things about you. So yeah, your value goes far beyond your 3.4 points per game.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nia Hollie, former Michigan State women's basketball player, but you're going to hear much more about her in the months and years to come. And if you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, virtual or in person, just hit us up at tsbtelevision@gmail.com or find me at social media at @TheMikePeden on Twitter and Instagram. That does it for this edition of Mic'd Up Sports. Thanks for watching.